Hi everyone and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. I'm Sam and we are going to be talking about first drafts. Today I am joined by the lovely FPL Nymfria. Nym, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
How's your pre-season going?
Yeah, it's good, thank you. Very busy, but enjoying it.
Yeah, you've been like me, constant videos going out and about on your channel. So it's nice though, isn't it? It's been quite a hectic pre-season, I think, with the Euros as well, which has meant, we were just chatting before we did this, how actually sometimes that means that you don't spend so much time looking at your team, and that can sometimes be for the benefit and it can sometimes be a little bit of a negative. But we've got on screen your current draft. Now, obviously, it is a draft, so between now and August the 13th, I'm pretty sure you'll be tinkering away and some of these players will wander off.
Absolutely.
And some new ones will come in. And of course, we've still got transfer window open, so there's still plenty of moments for things to change. But we're going to talk through Nim's draft, have a little look at who she's gone with, why she's gone with them. But I want to start by talking about your team name, because you are in a similar position to me. Do you want to tell everyone, what's your team name?
So it's you can do it, but with can rather than a can.
So named after the man, the myth, the legend, yeah. Sergio. Now, of course, he, like my team name inspiration, Toby Alderweireld, because my team is currently called Best in the Alderweireld, has now left the league. So are you changing your team name? Because this is something that I've had constant questions on since Toby left Spurs earlier on in the week.
Yeah, no, actually I have changed it from Nim's All-Stars to You Can Do It. Just because I wanted to, I guess, immortalise Aguero a little bit more, and everyone knows how much I love him, so I just thought quite nice to take him into the new season with us in some small way, even though he won't be there.
I literally love that, but he's kind of FPL legendary status, right? So I think it's fine.
Definitely.
And actually, I'm really unsure as to what I'm going to do with my team name. Toby is literally probably one of my all-time favourite ever Spurs players. So I may just stick with it. I might just be Best in the Alderweireld for this season.
It depends on how good it's been for you. I mean, Nim's All-Stars haven't exactly been brilliant for me, so I thought maybe I could steal some magic from Aguero.
Oh, well, fingers crossed. All right, let's have a little look at this draft then, because I think there's a few things that stand out for me, but let's go through starting with the goalkeepers, because so we've got a set and forget option basically in Sanchez.
Yes, we have.
Brighton's fixtures are great, so I can see why. But talk to me about your Sanchez pick first of all.
Yeah, so it's just Brighton's fixtures, basically. I love them. They're so good. Burnley, Watford, Everton, Brentford, Leicester, and Crystal Palace in their first six. So, it's pretty nice for a set and forget 4.5 million goalkeeper. And Brighton kept 10 clean sheets last season and Sanchez 67 saves. So, he's not a bad shout for the start of the season. And that's pretty much why I've kind of jumped on Sanchez. It was hard ignoring Martinez after last season because, Arsenal fan here, and sad to have kind of got rid of him, and in doing so well at Aston Villa. It's just the fixtures, I think, and his price as well, that's a little bit kind of put me off in that respect. And yeah, I just like a cheap set and forget, really. It allows us to spread our cash elsewhere, doesn't it, really?
Well, that's the thing. I think, Sanchez at 4.5 million, he's come in at a really nice price. There is absolutely no denying, and I can see why he's so popular in the game right now, because his price is really great, particularly given the fixtures that they have. And I thought he was going to be the perfect rotating option with Steele, because of course he was their second at Brighton. I thought, brilliant, this is ideal. We can have two players in there for 8.5 million and guarantee you've got a goalkeeper for every week. And now subsequently Brighton have signed another goalkeeper, and we're not really yet sure as to who's second and who's third. So that does kind of mess things around a little bit. So I'm kind of interested by what you've done here, because you've obviously gone with Foster as your second, probably because he's 4.0 and it's just budget friendly.
Yeah.
I'm really tempted to go with the Watford double up here, because Bachmann comes in at also 4.5. Fixtures look good. After the new manager arrived at Watford last time, they conceded just 3 in 13 home games. He had an unbelievable season where once he came in, I think he had 26 of the games in the Championship last time around. He just was phenomenal for Watford. So any interest in going with Bachmann and Foster together then, knowing you've got security of starts of your keeper?
Yeah, definitely considering it. I did like a differential draft, and I also talked a little bit about Pickford and doing the same with the two Everton keepers, but of course that's a little more pricey. But yes, I do like the Watford options because, like you said, there's that fallback if. If one doesn't start, then you're okay, definitely, for the cheaper one to come in.
Yeah.
So it's been on my mind, definitely, to make the switch over to the Watford keepers. So there's still a little bit of kind of thought process going on with the goalkeeper.
Because I guess that goes into what you're doing with your defence, because you've also got a Brighton defender in there, no Watford defenders. So this is the conversation that I've been having with my team, is kind of, do I go with the Brighton keeper and then a Watford defender, or do I go the Watford keepers and a Brighton defender? And at the moment I'm kind of in the Watford keeper, Brighton defender, solely because of what I've just said about those two rotating, potential for the goalies to kind of cover each other if ever one misses out. But your defence, I kind of feel, is quite typical of in price points anyway. So you've got one really expensive one, two really cheap ones, and then two middling players. But no Man United defenders in there, which was the fascinating one for me, because I looked at that and thought, oh, where's the Man United? Yeah, where Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw.
Yeah, so I'm actually considering Shaw in Soufal's spot, which we can discuss a little bit more, I guess, based on me potentially dropping one of the midfielders to free up the cash to do that, because obviously Soufal is 5 million, whereas Shaw is 5.5 million. So Shaw is definitely kind of, I'd say, penciled in for that Soufal spot. Although, Soufal did incredibly well last season with his 9 assists, and he did really well in the Euros as well. I don't mind West Ham's fixtures to start either. Leicester and Man United, the only ones that really worry me. So it's a tough one on that one, but I think obviously you can't have them all. So.
And I do think, I was having a look at West Ham earlier, and they do rotate quite nicely with Brentford. So when I was recording a goalkeeper video earlier, and I was having a look at Fabianski with the Brentford keeper, and that works quite well. And likewise, the Fairfield works with your defenders. So you could go Kufal and have a really cheap Brentford defender there to kind of play in and out amongst those the slightly more difficult fixtures that they have. I just find going into those fixtures that Manchester United have without a Manchester United defender a bit frightening. So I've had Luke Shaw in every draft that I've done so far, but then of course the broken rib thing has sort of thrown a bit of a spanner in the works. So I'm waiting.
That put me off putting him in the draft initially, because it was around that sort of time that I kind of made the initial draft. So I think that was in my brain when I was kind of who I want a definite start. If I'm going to spend that much money, like, I know it's not a lot, but I mean, compared to a 4.5 million, I'd rather somebody I know was definitely starting. So I think it's been kind of, I'll stick Soufal in and wait and see on Shaw sort of thing, because there's nobody else really at Man United. I know Wan-Bissaka did quite well last season, but there's no one else I really want, because Shaw looked amazing in the Euros, especially attacking wise.
Yeah,
so that's always great for us FPL.
And I guess with Tellez definitely going to miss out in the opening couple of games of the season, then that makes it really positive for sure in terms of guaranteed start, as long as he is fit and available. So just we have to kind of wait it out, I suppose, and see what happens there. But I am very keen on the Manchester United defence, particularly up until kind of first wild card. Those fixtures look really nice.
Really good.
Right, let's go from one red team to another then and talk about Trent, because I actually haven't seen as many drafts with Trent in as I was expecting to see. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of them have either gone without the Liverpool defence, which I find interesting, or they've gone with Robertson because he's going to save you 0.5 and the budget thing is such a big deal this year. Or they've gone, and in my last draft I did this before the news that he may not be available for Game Week 1 came out, about going with Van Dijk, who of course is going to save you a further 0.5. So Trent, you think he's worth the extra 0.5 over Robertson?
Yeah, Yeah, at this point, I should probably say that I pointed out last season that Robertson would get more points than Trent, and he did by just one. Remember that? By just one, but he did it. But yes, I'm on Trent at the start of this season, and I haven't really wavered on that. He did really well for me towards the end of last season, and going with that Liverpool defence seems nuts for me. 10 clean sheets last season, and
and that was when they were defensively struggled, right? They were really struggling
exactly.
last year.
Like you said, they struggled, but they've shored up for the start of this season, with Van Dijk coming back, and they've signed the Konaté fella. So I think we could really see the Liverpool of old, again in defence. So going without some sort of Liverpool defender just seems like nuts to me. But Trent, even with quite an injury-plagued season and a confidence-plagued season, because there was one point where he just really didn't look, the most confident as he has. Still 2 goals and 8 assists. So, as a defender, that's happy days for us.
And I do think that last season, obviously living with a Liverpool fan, I hear a lot about Liverpool in this house. And he was talking quite a lot about, the difficulties that Robertson and Trent, both of them had in terms of going forward, because of course they were missing key men in the middle of the park where they just didn't have anyone that they trusted to get back and help with the defence if they'd gone forward. They were missing Van Dijk, and equally, therefore they weren't as stable with their centre-back. So it meant that when they were going forward, there was always that risk that the clean sheet was going to get wiped out because they were going forward. So, but I agree with you. I mean, I think the Liverpool fixtures look way too nice to not have a defender, and I think you're setting yourself up for a bit of a problem in these early weeks of the season if Liverpool are defensively more solid, which I'm expecting them to be this time around. If you don't have one, but you have got the double up with them in the middle, because you've got both Salah and Jota there, which I've done, and both of them have been in both of my, or all 3 of my drafts that I've done so far.
So I don't feel completely crazy for the Jota thing then.
No. They've both been there, and I do really like him at the price point he is. I think, when you look at the mid-price midfielders, there's a couple in there in that kind of 6.5 to 6 bracket that I think are really worth the money. But then when you look at the 7.5 bracket, there's probably, there's Jota, there's Gundogan, and there's Mount for me. It was one of those 3 if you're going to spend that much money. And Gundogan I worry about, depending upon what happens with KDB and his positioning on the field. Are we going to see him? I don't think we'll see him get rotated, but I think we could see him sitting deeper in that City attack, because KDB will be there in his place. And of course, we don't yet know how Man City are going to add to their ranks for the season. I'm sure that they will, but it's just, who is it going to be? Is it going to be Kane? Is it going to be Grealish? Is it going to be someone else entirely? So that's a tough one, I think, with Gundogan. With Mount, I really like Mount. I think he's a really nice pick, but the Chelsea fixtures aren't as nice as the Liverpool ones in these early weeks of the season. So I think that there's more scope for Jota over Mount, but obviously there is some risk of rotation around Diego Jota, but he does seem to get points even if he comes off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually stuck my neck out. I did some prediction videos really, really early before the game got going, and I stuck my neck out saying that Jota will be one of the top scorers this season if he gets regular game time. It's that kind of tiny asterisk, I guess, that you have to kind of put with Jota. But as you say, you can still get the points off the bench. And it's just 9 goals in limited minutes. I mean, the potential there with him is just massive. And you'd like to think that maybe Klopp will sit and look at last season and look at all the rotation and maybe think, you know what, if I was more consistent with my lineup every week, there's a potential we could have done even better. So I'm kind of hoping there's a little bit of him that's kind of leaning on that, and hoping that Jota, Mane, Salah will be the main triangle of this season. So that's the hope anyway with the Jota pick.
I mean, I agree with you on it. I think there's real potential here for good stuff from him this season. I can't see him being benched as often as he was last year. I think the amount of changes that Liverpool had to make to that team last season through injury, to Jota as well, right? Meant that there was never that consistency for him, and I can see that improving this time around. But the elephant in the room in that midfield there is the lack of Bruno Fernandes. Now, KDB's there, but there's no Bruno. You're a brave lady.
Bruno. I know. Okay, so this was based on the initial reaction to Kevin's Euro form, because I thought he looked amazing, and we were getting lots of these rumours, which I have to say quietly, obviously with you being a Spurs fan, that Harry would be going to City. And I don't know, in my head I was just thinking this is another Son Kane situation. If Harry goes to City, Kevin, and plus the fact that Kevin scores, his own goals, 6 goals last season. So I was just like, I couldn't quite see past it at the time. And then I think there was a lot of talk that obviously Sancho was coming to United, and I was like, I don't know where that leaves Bruno. And obviously the Pogba situation towards the end of last season meant that Bruno kind of still posted good stats, but wasn't necessarily posting the FPL returns we were so used to towards the end of the season. So I just kind of leaned on De Bruyne for those reasons, and I always thought they're the same price point, so I can always shift to Bruno. And the thing is, he's just become so popular again now and percentage owned that I'll probably chicken out
to go
with Bruno, just based on not wanting to be against the crowd and getting it wrong, I guess. But it was a kind of, I really like, Kevin at the moment, and we'll see how this pre-season plays out before I settle.
It's interesting. It really is interesting what you just said about KDB, because I fully agree with you. If Kane goes there, I think it adds another dimension to KDB's game. But I also think that if Kane goes to City,
could it drop his potential?
Well, I'll want to own Kane, I think. And
yes,
as a result of that, I think I'm going to want to own Kane regardless of what happens, to be honest, if he's in a Spurs shirt, if he's in a City shirt. And his price, of course, is going to be very tough to own Kane and Salah and Bruno and maintain Trent in the back line without making some other quite drastic changes to your side. So I'm looking at your team, and I've Basuma. I love Basuma. He's always in my first draft every season without fail, because he's cheap.
You just can't get away from that 4.5 million consistent starter, can you really?
Absolutely. And he did score last season, absolute wonder goal. He sat on my bench when he did it, but nonetheless he did do it. So there is potential with him just to have someone who's going to come on, get you 2 or 3 points, or even just 1 point, but he's coming on, so that's helpful. But there is Billy Gilmore in that position now, gone to Norwich on loan, so he's got potential for maybe a bit more upside to his game. The Rafinha spot, I was fully with you until about a week ago. I was fully
on board. Did you get swayed by Buendia?
Well, Buendia is part of that conversation for sure. So is Sarr, and I think there's scope for having a couple in at that price point. But I also really like Harrison, and I spent a lot of time, a disproportionate amount of time looking at Rafinha and Harrison and trying to work out which one I think is actually offering better value for money. And in the end, I've kind of settled on Harrison. He got more goals and assists combined, more goal involvements than Rafinha did last season. The underlying stats are actually quite similar. Harrison wins for goals, Rafinha wins for assists, but there's not a lot to choose from between the two of them. But there is 0.5 million. And at 0.5 million, I'm kind of looking at my team thinking, well, I've got Van Dijk at the moment as my Liverpool defender. I'm not sure if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. I would rather have Trent. So at that stage, can I go Harrison instead of Rafinha, save 0.5? That frees up half of the money I need to get from Van Dijk to Trent. And then I can do my Watford double up as the goalkeeper. That frees up the other 0.5 I need. And then I've got Trent. And so the way I kind of look at my team at the moment is I'm thinking they're both great enablers.
Yeah.
But the 0.5 difference, I think if they were both 6.5, I'd go Rafinha. But what I can do with the additional 0.5
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. Because I was going to say, what's the minutes difference between Rafinha and Harrison? Because I'm assuming Harrison got more minutes, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, so if we look at that for the underlying stats, then that might mean that Rafinha is slightly better then in that respect. Maybe that's why he's priced the extra 0.5. But when you think of it that you're gaining back the 0.5 to put elsewhere, it's what suits your team best, isn't it, really? It's what that 0.5 is going to do for you. If it gets you on the road to getting Trent, which I think is quite important given his percentage owned
I do.
and those Liverpool fixtures, then, then I don't see any reason with kind of, as you say, you've looked into it, you've seen the stats, Harrison is posting them. He did fly under the radar last season, I feel, because there were other players at Leeds that everyone else was just,
And we were on them already, right? We were already on Dallas and Bamford, and you weren't sure about trebling on Leeds. So, and then when you did want to treble on Leeds for the doubles, it tended to be Rafinha that you went for, just because of that's where everyone was going, and he was obviously in good form, so it made a lot of sense. Whereas I think this season, looking at them both, of course, Harrison was supposed to be a Manchester City player, and that maybe has an impact on the price that he's been added into the game at, since he's now made his permanent move over to Leeds. I don't know. I just think I can, for the amount that I think Harrison will be outscored by Rafinha, I think I could make up and more by spending that 0.5 on Trent.
Yeah. So. And I think that's how you have to look at it, and that's where it's individual to your team, because it's going to gain you back more of what you need monetary-wise to spend elsewhere. But, for me, I'm there going, well, I've got the extra little bit of cash, and I really quite like Rafinha. He was very good to me that season. So, at the moment, I'm kind of, leaning more on Raf, but I do get the Harrison pick, and I did consider him there myself. So, I'm with you on that for sure.
And this forward line, I think two of them we don't really need to talk about because they are going to be incredibly popular. Both Watkins and Tony are going to appear in multiple FPL teams. Yeah. But the Nacho pick I find fascinating because, so obviously had a fantastic season last time around and really kind of put himself in the FPL shop window as well as in the Premier League window.
Yeah, definitely.
But this time around, Harvey Barnes is fit and available again. They've now signed Daka as well. So suddenly we've gone from having a rotation risk with Vardy. If the rest of the front midfielders were available, then often Nacho sat on the bench. Whether that's still the case now because of what he did last season, we're yet to see under Rodgers. But with Daka coming, it looks like he's coming as a kind of future-proofing for when Vardy inevitably just gets too old, which is not that far away. But are you expecting lots of minutes out of Nacho this time around, or are you worried?
This spot has been my most contested spot, if I'm honest. I've mulled over Antonio for it, Calvert-Lewin for it. I think I'm probably on the romantic side of Nacho doing so well for me at the end of last season and liking Leicester's first three fixtures. So I think that's kind of why he went into this draft. 12 goals and 2 assists. That's
he was brilliant.
Good, and a good price point as well, because if it's not working out, you can just hopefully, hop from him to somebody else. So I think that's what I was thinking when I initially put him in. I am a little bit worried about his minutes. I'd be lying if I didn't say that. But I mean,
the squad depth is there.
Really consider dropping him on, on his form. I really don't know.
It's a really hard one, isn't it? Because he physically can't play Vardy and Nacho and Barnes and Maddison and all of the other,
There's a lot more talk now that Maddison may be off to Arsenal, which could
there is, and if that happens,
help with that.
Yeah, because I think if that does happen, it will change the way that Leicester City set up. And if Maddison's gone, then that Nacho spot surely becomes Nacho's spot, and he plays up top with Vardy, and Daka is the sub ready for the future. Obviously, of course, they've got Europa League to play this year as well, so they've got more games to play over the course of the season. The rotation stuff's going to kick in just in terms of legs and minutes, particularly after the summer that some of these players have had as well. So it worries me a little bit. You're right, though. If Maddison goes, I think he suddenly is back on the radar again, because at the price point, he is really, really well priced. So I think he could offer us some really good value, but we just have to make sure that I just don't want to spend 7.5 million to find him sat on the bench again regularly, because that would...
No, I feel you on that one. And to be honest, this forward line, whilst I've tended to stick on the kind of mid-priced forwards, I do have the Kane niggle in the back of my head.
It's hard not to. Although he's not going to be here for game week 1. So
yes,
from that perspective, that's helpful.
Yes.
Although the fixtures in game weeks 2 and 3...
It's still difficult then, though, isn't it, on how we...
Yeah. Do you save the money in the bank? Do you invest it? And then, no, you're not going to have Kane for those nice fixtures. If he's at Spurs, for the nice fixtures in 2, 3 and 4. If he's not at Spurs and he's at Man City... Are you going to want him quicker? Like, can you wait for a wild card to have Kane? He's quite highly owned. Is he going to go up in price? Like, there's all of that kind of plays out in the back of my mind.
There's quite a lot around it, isn't there? And I think, for me, I've always been quite on the stance that, you know, Kane is, you know, not a bad pick wherever he is. A bit like yourself, like Golden Boot and Playmaker, you know, last season at Spurs. Like, he's not going to turn into a bad player overnight at all. And
if anything, Spurs are strengthening. Spurs are strengthening. The signings that they've got coming in are performing well. Dele Alli's back in form. I'm looking at the Spurs side thinking, well, actually, things are looking better. So if he stays, he's definitely not a bad option. And if he goes, he's definitely not a bad option. So
I mean, people are going to argue if he stays, he didn't want to stay, so that's going to affect his...
It's not that kind of player, though.
I don't think that's right at all, because I think Harry will have a very large say in whether he stays or not. If he stays, I don't think he's the sort of player that just stays for the money.
He won't drop either.
He stays because he wants to stay.
I agree.
So if he does stay at Spurs, he is not a bad option. And in my brain, I'm there going, I would like him regardless of whether he's at Spurs or City. So yeah, that's the one thing that's playing me on going with the 3 midfield forwards at the moment. So he's kind of like just tinkering away there,
waving at you, going, don't forget about me.
It's the sort of thing where I'm there going, okay, let's look at this Kane draft. But like you said, the game week 1 bit is the kind of difficult bit, because I think you have to really downgrade elsewhere to get Kane in.
You do, yeah.
You're possibly looking at like a Davis in your 3rd forward spot. So then, you know, you're looking at possibly having to play somebody like Basuma in midfield.
It's definitely tough.
It becomes quite difficult. Like you said, I think it would have to be maybe an early wild card, you know, situation.
Amazing. Right, before I let you go, if your team stays like this for game week 1, who's wearing the armband?
Salah.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
He's going to be really popular.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too surprised if we see some
really
triples.
Popular.
I wouldn't be at all surprised to see some triple captains in that game week.
Yeah,
I really wouldn't.
I'd be tempted with Tony against Arsenal because because I just have a really sneaky feeling he'll get a brace against us. I don't know why.
You heard it here first.
I know, like, that's terrible, isn't it? Like, really putting against my team there in the first game week. But our defence. I mean, if we get Ben White, then it's a little better. But yeah, at the moment, it's a bit kind of. And Tony's just a goal scoring machine. So I think there's that potential. But I love that shizzle, but I'm not that. I'll go with the crowd on Salah.
Amazing.
Captaincy.
Right, Nim, enjoy the rest of pre-season. Enjoy your tinkering. And hopefully, fingers crossed, for a good game week 1.